Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Walk the Block, where we are all navigating digital finance together. My name is Zenith. I will be your host for the evening as per usual, and I'm joined by my excellent co-host, as always, Mr. Tracker. How you doing, buddy?
Doing good, man. Kudos to those that are still involved in crypto and still out there. I saw an interesting tweet out there from one of the guys we love to follow. Definitely support him. Sami does a lot of great work, especially in the Paul Shannon and Richard Hart ecosystem. And he had a meme out there saying that they had collected data as far as, I don't know if this was, I forgot what it was on. I could dive into it, but basically on what's the most hated stuff out there. This is on this whole new some type of snooze option and X or something that they've created, and crypto's number one. We are the most hated thing out there. Crypto's number one, then comes politics, then the Iran conflict, then sports, business, finance, gaming, artificial intelligence, videos, science, technology, and entertainment and art being the top 10. So that kind of tells you where most people's attentions are at. So they're entertainment, arts, science and technology, and the two most hated is politics, then comes crypto.
Brilliant. We're still here, baby.
Yeah, man.
Not going anywhere.
Yeah, it sounds like a contrarian opportunity.
Yeah, could be. Definitely could be. Oh gosh, I think we've covered some of the other sentiment indicators. Like social media presence has been down at like all-time lows for the past 3 months.
Sure.
Fear and greed indicators just been in the absolute dumps for a while until this latest rally where we actually finally got up almost even, basically. But yeah, it's like it seems like a bottom signal. Is it a hard signal? No, but at the same time, it's definitely an interesting to look at, especially if you go by the philosophy of buy when there's blood in the streets, or people couldn't even remember to think about it for the time. It's like, well, we're kind of seeing that.
Correct. Which tells me, I mean, I still come back to what I always say: who's buying? The smart money, the TradFi, the big instrument. They've been buying, they're accumulating. Why nobody else is talking about it? Exactly how they want it to be right now. Until they don't, and once they don't, then you're going to start seeing it all over mainstream media. You're going to see people pushing these narratives more aggressively. But this is the time we are in. To me, I'm sorry, I have no problem buying right now.
True. Exactly. Alrighty, we'll tell you what. Tonight we're going to be talking about the big story of the day, Jerome Powell's final Federal Reserve press conference. Although we did get a big announcement from him. He pulled a Wolf of Wall Street and said, "I'm not leaving." He is stepping down his chair. The new guy, Kevin Warsh, was, I believe he was confirmed. So he's pretty much like all set, ready to go, ready to get in there on day one and start doing stuff. Jerome Powell's future, he said he's going to remain on as a governor, and he's going to stay there until the time it's for him to leave, is what the quote from the press conference today was. There's been a lot of speculation about, like, okay, why do that? Especially considering you and I both previously talked about, like, dude, you're getting old. Probably the highest profile job you're ever going to have, and people don't stay on after that, but apparently he's choosing to do so. And then after that, we are going to get into a little bit of the markets. Interesting stuff going on. Crypto had a bit of a pump, had a bit of a retracement. We may or may not have read the crystal ball perfectly, but also S&P 500, new all-time high. Tracker's favorite, Russell 2000, also doing very well. And then we also have some interesting articles to bring to you guys talking about what's going on in the world with regards to safety and security and AI, whether or not it's overblown. And then also some good, just fundamental articles, I would argue, as well. Yeah. Before we get to it, though, I do have one fun share. I do want to get there. Tracker, what do you know about the city of Buffalo as a sports town?
Huge sports fan. I mean, that's where the Buffalo Wild Wing came from. I mean, that's where wings were invented, man. I mean, come on, it's a diehard, place. Come on, I'm not even from there, and I know that.
Exactly. I feel like a lot of people know this, but a lot of people know the Buffalo Bills, the NFL team. Not as many people know about the Buffalo Sabres, the NHL team, the hockey team, and they have not made the playoffs in 14 years. They did this year, and whoever was in charge of their Twitter account went on an absolute spree, just posting and quoting people that were talking trash earlier in the season, and then once they make playoffs, are like begging for like season for playoffs tickets, and they just were like posting the screenshots of like, this you said we were trash. They even went as far to get a billboard quoting one of the local sports guys, saying that they had a 0.000% chance of making playoffs that year. So that was hilarious. But the big funny news story for me is that they have spawned a new fan base because the Buffalo Bills have the Bills Mafia, obviously. Now we have what's being colloquial called Blade Gang. Let's see what we got. Yes, they set up a boxing UFC practice dummy, and then everyone dresses up in Sabres gear, fights it. They get the kids to fight it too. But they've had a killer glow up because this is the Buffalo Sabres official website. Look who it is. It's Blade Gang. And they even brought him out to shoot a full-on promo, and then even brought him out to the arena to go bang the drum for the playoff series. So there you go. New sports fan base going on there. Blade Gang.
That's cool, man.
Is this the unhinged level we expected of Buffalo?
No, I mean this seems right. There's a comedian one time he kind of put it up on, and he stated the thing that's really funny. He's like, in the really crappy weather areas, you get the best sports fans because they're locked in, and in places like in say San Diego and places like that where the weather's perfect all year round, it's like there's too many options. So yeah, that's pretty much what it comes down to.
It's true. Oh my god, that just I thought it was hilarious. Bills Mafia is funny to watch, just people just destroying the tables at all the tailgates and stuff. But apparently, this is the new thing. They made it to the playoffs for the first time in 14 years, and they are loving it. Their novelty item that they sell the most of at the arena is the Buffalo Saber. It is a clear plastic saber that holds a beer.
Sounds perfect. I would say, yeah, Buffalo needs a championship in some shape or form because they had those 4 straight AFC championships in football, which was great, incredible to see, but never brought home the Super Bowl, which is always still. I'm sure most of them, if you ask fans, they'd give up those 4 for a Super Bowl in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I'd say so. I don't think you can accuse anybody of Buffalo being a bandwagoner because they have been on it the whole time, and the whole time they have not won any championship in a long time. So they're still there. They're still partying. Shout out to those guys.
Yeah, I got more respect for people who stick with a team that's just been dog shit, basically. Sorry, excuse my word, but that's basically the best way I can put it. Because I don't think anybody knows unless you've been a fan for, say, 30, 40 years and your team has just sucked the whole time and you've been sticking to them. I feel like at that point, the franchise owes you something at that point.
A little bit. True. All right, tell you what, enough of that. Let's get into the other big celebration that we got going on. That is none other than Mr. Jerome Powell himself taking the stand for the last time. The basic synopsis of this press conference pretty much was, yes, inflation is up. It pretty much spiked up a whole percentage point, and that's largely just due to what's been going on over in the Middle East and, dropping bombs, fighting about a strait of water, and then oil prices, obviously, is the whole pretty much reason for inflation. Outside of that, unemployment did drop by another 0.1% again. So we are down at about 4.2. We had a high of about 4.5 like 3-4 months ago. So overall, yeah, people are worried about inflation just due to their own stuff. But at the same time, once that calms down and is over, like it's pretty much back to normal baseline, it seems like. So it's kind of just a question of when. And, we've been covering that whole thing here for a while because it's also been affecting our prices as well as the rest of the market. But again, if we've seen anything from the S&P 500 numbers, we're back up to all-time highs. So the market believes that the situation is pretty much resolved. So not a whole lot going on there. So this was a pretty solid press conference, I got to say. Some good questions about economic stuff, but also really the big point was, what is Jerome doing? I know he's trying to say he's trying to step out of the limelight, let Kevin Warsh take over as the new Fed chair once he gets in there, and trying to figure out what we're doing. So let's hear from the man himself about his little final send-off that we got going on.
This is my last press conference as chair, and I will close with a few thoughts. First, I want to congratulate Kevin Warsh on his advancement out of the Senate Banking Committee this morning. This is an important step forward, and I wish him well as that process continues. The Federal Reserve exists for one fundamental purpose: to foster the economic conditions in which American families and businesses can thrive. Stable prices, a strong job market, and a financial system they can depend on. Every decision we make, whether about interest rates or regulatory and supervisory matters or other issues, is made in service of that purpose. Our decisions reflect the collective judgment of the Board of Governors and the Federal Open Market Committee, colleagues who demonstrate analytical rigor, principled judgment, and a genuine commitment to the public interest. Our collaborative and deliberative process has long reflected a shared commitment to finding common ground in service to our mission. This institution is resilient, capable, and staffed by professionals of extraordinary talent and exceptional dedication. It has been a privilege to serve alongside so many great public servants at the Board of Governors and around the Federal Reserve System. The Fed's work is only as effective as the public's understanding of it, and you, the press, are essential to keeping the public informed about what we do and why. The people we serve benefit from your careful reporting. I welcomed the announcement last Friday by the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia that she had closed the criminal investigation. She also noted, however, that she would not hesitate to restart the investigation. Over the weekend, the Department of Justice provided assurances that they will not reopen the investigation unless there's a criminal referral from the Fed's Inspector General. And, absent such a referral, if they do appeal the recent court decision, they would not seek, as part of that appeal, to restart the investigation or send new subpoenas. I've said that I will not leave the board until this investigation is well and truly over with transparency and finality, and I stand by that. I'm encouraged by recent developments, and I'm watching the remaining steps in this process carefully. My decisions on these matters will continue to be guided entirely by what I believe is in the best interest of the institution and the people we serve. After my term as chair ends on May 15, I will continue to serve as a governor for a period of time to be determined. I plan to keep a low profile as a governor. There's only ever one chair of the Federal Reserve Board. When Kevin Warsh is confirmed and sworn in, he will be that chair. Once sworn in as board chair, his new colleagues will elect him to chair the FOMC as well. As I regularly point out from this podium, our success in delivering our goals matters for all Americans. I'm confident that the Fed will continue to do its work with objectivity, integrity, and a deep commitment to serve the American people. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
All righty. So Kevin Warsh has been confirmed by the Senate Banking Committee. I know we've been waiting on them to do that whole Clarity Act thing, but I guess this was a more pressing matter, which, you know what? Fair, I guess, but at the same time, why not both? Regardless, though, pretty much you heard there, he's doing the whole, we're committed to the American people, trying to do our good work, but two big things. Number one, he's stepping down as the Fed chair, will remain as one of the governors. The governors is one of the people that votes on the decision-making. He has been a decision-maker vote as well, but he's also been the front man and also kind of the de facto leader. New guy coming in, so the question is, new leadership, why keep the old leadership around? And then point number two there is, he said he's going to stay on until the investigation by the DOJ is fully well and clear. We'll see if that answer changes throughout the rest of the press conference, but at its face, that's the reasoning for staying on. Tracker, does that make sense, or does this whole thing kind of seem a bit off to you?
Well, the thing that I don't understand, just for everybody who doesn't understand, what he's being under investigation on is the $2 billion that was used to renovate the historic Federal Reserve buildings on the National Mall. That's what this whole thing's about. All right. There's bigger problems in Wall Street. I'm sorry, Wall Street, DC. There's their own problems in Wall Street too, but there's bigger problems in DC than this. This seems like somebody's grabbing for things. This looks like a political move. That's what it looks like. Plus, the Department of Justice, they already said that. I thought they already said subpoena threatened. I thought they'd already kind of pulled back on this already. Yeah, here. The criminal investigation was later dropped by the Justice Department around in this month. So to me, it was more like, all right, you need to hurry up and get out of office. Don't dilly dally. We need you out of here and move along, or we're gonna, it's what it makes it feel like. He's gonna stay on for that to end. To me, it's already wrapping up. I don't know why he has to stay on, but it is what it is. I don't know. I find it interesting.
No, you're entirely correct, and it is a bit of an odd thing. Pretty much what he's getting at with it, he's like, look, they kind of said that they were dropping it. He did say that they also mentioned they would pick it up again if, files were actually, or charges were actually filed, which, to be honest, the likelihood of that, in my personal opinion, is very low. Yes, the $2 billion renovation of the Federal Reserve building, was it more than 3 times over budget from their contract? Yes. Is that especially egregious? Also, yes. But at the same time, it's like you said, there are so much bigger fish to fry. And honestly, this one, you could realistically just blame it on like a bad project manager and just make him the scapegoat. And Jerome just washes his hands of the whole thing. He's like, yeah, look, I told him to renovate. I didn't tell him to spend 3 times as much, but he did because we were in it. And then we kind of just had to spend more and more and more. And it's like sunk cost fallacy kind of stuff. So it's like, realistically, the scandal's kind of a bit of a nothing, hardly even a scandal.
I mean, personally, I feel like, mismanagement of taxpayer funds in DC, I think is a prerequisite to be considered, to be anybody in power there personally. I don't care what side you're on. So, I mean, you could probably say the same thing about anybody who's in any senator, congressman, or anybody in power in DC.
I was going to say, who was sweating the hardest when they were doing the investigation over that? The freaking Pentagon. Those guys have just lost billions of dollars over the years.
Yeah. Come on, man. Well, we got to laugh about it. It's really sickening, but you must have to laugh just to keep your sanity because of how bad it is. But to go back to the original question here, I mean, him staying on, that's the bigger question. Has any other Fed chair ever stayed on the committee?
Let's find out. Has any past Fed chair stayed? Let's see what our good old friend JP says. Says yes, but it's rare and typically short-lived. The one clear example is Mariner Eccles, after serving as the chair of the Fed back in
World War II. We're talking about World War II times here, man.
Yeah, picking up Korea as well.
And before then, you're on the tail end of World War I. So yeah, this happened 2 times, is what it looks like, and each time it was, well, I can make it strong. All right, here's my thing here on this one. Between chair, so Mario Eccles, you were talking about 1934 to 1948. That was so I think 33 or 34 was when the Fed was oh God, there's something huge that was created at that point in the government. Then there was in 1914, 1916. That's when I believe the Fed was created.
Yeah, Federal Reserve was created back in the 1910s.
1910, 1911. Yeah. Ironically, 10 months before J.P. Morgan died, and that was his brainchild, FYI. Just thought that was an interesting note. Didn't quite make it to see it come to fruition. But and then I think that was, I'm sorry, 1934, 1933 is what I'm thinking. That's BIS. Sorry.
Also a big one, but different story for a different day.
Yeah, a lot. Totally deep dive in that one. We're not going down that rabbit hole. Yeah, but anyhow, yes, very rare, strange. I mean, all I can say is it sounds like that it's, I don't know. Maybe he's been asked to stay on just for something. I don't know. There's definitely more to the story than we're being told. That's for certain.
Yeah. So coming to us from over on Investopedia, they had an article about this one. So looking at what is the possible max term for Jerome Powell. Realistically, this is what we're looking at. His term as chair, a position he's held for 8 years, ends in May 15th to be exact. Before the FOMC's next meeting in June. That'll be the first one with Kevin Warsh at the helm. Through his tenure, the Board of Governors runs until 2028. So pretty much what we're looking at is staying on through 2027. So kind of at most, he has basically a year and a half, a little more, until his time is kind of like officially up, until there would have to be further action to take to keep him there. So this is not an action that we see routinely from people. And honestly, I would highly doubt if he stays like the full year and a half. Honestly, he's probably just going to stay through, I don't know, maybe the end of 2026 once he feels that like things are kind of going the right direction. But one of the reasons why this is such a big question mark is that there's other unprecedented stuff going on right now with the Federal Reserve. If you've been following the channel, you follow our coverage on this, you know that the Fed has actually been divided on decisions lately. One of the big kind of lines of questioning that we had from the press conference on Wednesday was that people were talking about hiking, people were talking about cutting, people were talking about remaining neutral. In fact, a good part of the board of governors actually voted to remove language from their press statements talking about the possibility of cutting in the near future as like that being part of their plan, and they're shifted to a more neutral stance. So obviously it's not saying that they're hiking, but it's going from cutting to neutral, and you're moving in the direction of the thing that is directly above that, which is rate hikes. Did get some questions. The basic answer there was no, we're planning on just staying neutral. We want to be able to go both directions if needed, but he doubts it. So we're at a time where we now have dissent. We kind of have a period where, as Jerome talked about in the press conference, he says he was the Fed chair for what he called four unprecedented shocks in the system. Number one was COVID. Number two was Russia. Number three was the inflation. And number four is the Iran conflict going on now. He's saying that these are all massive shocks to supply side, and typically they're looking at managing demand. So divided board of governors, unprecedented times, and also they've been talking nonstop about the independence of the Fed and how that's possibly under threat. So based on those three things, it's kind of a shaky time. So what I kind of picked up from the press conference today is that I think Jerome is actually kind of like more personal mission oriented than we thought, which is like, I think he's done a very good job of doing the job. But based on the stuff I saw today, it's like, why would you stay on? He'd stay on because he believes that he still needs one hand on the wheel, so to speak, in order to make sure that we don't take it completely off the rails based on new political appointment coming in.
Okay, so that brings me to what Trump has stated, because obviously Walsh is basically who Trump had selected to be the new Fed chair, and he's talking very, negatively on Jerome since he's been in there, right? Well, these are just recent quotes. Jerome's too late. Jerome too late. Powell wants to stay at the Fed because he can't find a job anywhere else. Shots fired. Okay, nobody wants him. Then there's other ones here. They're asking, what happens if Jerome potentially stays on after his chair term, and Trump said he would fire him. Then I'll have to fire him, okay? That's what he basically stated. More recently, he was asked on the 29th, just, yesterday. He's like, I don't care. If he stays on, he stays on. So it's interesting how you're taking this stern direction. All of a sudden now it's kind of like, it is what it is. I feel like at this point, there's obviously been some agreements on the back end. Let's just call it what it is. Walsh has stepped in. That's who Trump wanted. He wanted him in there for one reason only, and that was to really be aggressive on cutting rates. He's been very critical on Jerome. That's why he calls him too late Powell, because he's always too late to cut. There's some truth behind that. He is very cautious. He's always looking at the data. Some people always say he's a little bit slow on, making the moves on whether or not he should have been cutting rates more aggressively. Maybe that would have curtailed some things. Who knows at this point in time? But, it's going to be interesting, him staying on, whether he's going to have a voice, and yet Walsh stepping in. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I think the biggest thing everybody wants to see is we want rates cut. I think that's the biggest thing, but they got to be careful on that too. Yeah. And I think that's why, and going back to what you're saying, that's why Jerome's here, because he's like, he knows, I think he knows if I step aside, you guys are going to just start doing, 75 bips and stuff. And it's going to be like, wait, what? And like, you're going to be dropping these rates quickly. And then, of course, homeowners would love it for anybody who's got a house that's a higher rate, because everybody will start refinancing debt. But the big reason why the U.S. government wants to refinance debt too. So the big boogeyman is the debt. Everybody wants to refinance debt at lower rates. And I still believe, don't have facts on it, but I still believe that part of the tariff negotiations is also helping these countries in negotiating those tariffs. Was also one of the levers or cards to play was the U.S. debt that they own as well. Maybe potentially getting them a lower rate. Well, they need lower rates in order to make that happen. So that could be a lot of it too. I still believe that some facet that is definitely involved in those discussions.
That's true. There's actually some second order effects that I do want to get to in a second about him staying on. But real quick, for the folks at home, this fine gentleman is the one that will be replacing Jerome Powell here in May. This is Kevin Warsh. He actually was on the Federal Reserve Board of Governors back from 2006 to 2011. Since then, he was kind of floating around for a little bit. Worked over there at he became a partner at the Duquesne family office, the firm of Stanley Druckenmiller, and then he served on the board of directors for United Parcel and Service and Coop Gang. pretty much did a bunch of other stuff, was actually got some awards. But here's the big one. Prior to the expected conclusion of Janet Yellen's term as chair of the Federal Reserve back in 2018, he was actually on the short list of people to be considered as the person to replace her. So it's interesting to see that Janet Yellen, Jerome Powell, now Kevin Warsh, even though back in the last cycle, effectively, people were saying, yeah, oh yeah, it's probably going to be Kevin. But instead, we got Jerome. So the guy's not a stranger. He's literally worked at the Federal Reserve as a voting member of the board in the past. So like he's well aware of everything that goes on here. But more importantly, though, the big thing is that he has pretty much been handpicked by the president to do it, which means that, yeah, there is going to be some degree of the president's influence into it, just because you pick guys that do the things you want them to do. But at the same time, you also want to make sure you're picking people that are maintain basic minimum competency. I think the man well exceeds basic minimum competency. And I think he probably has a vision that aligns with the president's administration based on the news reports and the quotes and the clips talking about, he's like, yeah, we could probably use at least another like three-quarter point cut. Excuse me. It's a tongue twister there. So that's who's coming in next. Seems reasonable. Granted, until we really started covering this a lot, never knew who the guy was. But then again, I wasn't exactly investing in crypto back when Janet Yellen was still at the Fed. I think I was still trying to graduate college at the time.
You know, it's interesting because when Warsh was coming in here, when he was coming in here, basically he was stating that you're saying, you know, 3/4 cuts or 75 bips cuts is what he was looking at trying to do. But now they're saying only 25 bip cuts is what a lot of people have set for this year that they're expecting. So that right there could definitely trigger a rally in the crypto market if it's more aggressive than what economists are expecting for this year. Somebody's off.
That sounds about right. I think that, so let's go through the three cases that we have. The case for a rate hike. People are citing the instability in the world, rising inflation, jobs are still high, the AI threat looms large, which, by the way, that one is well overblown. But that's pretty much the case for hiking rates, which is like, we got to get ahead of this stuff before it becomes a problem. The neutral rate, which is stay where we are, is like, look, we've achieved what realistically is steady state because like inflation was on the way to 2% before, you know, Iran stuff happened. And then unemployment, according to Jerome, is at a very precedented level, a very historically normal level. Granted, low job hires, but also at the same time, low layoffs and that kind of stuff. And the rate cut side of the house is saying that, no, we have more to go. Like the unemployment is getting worse and inflation is not really moving. Therefore, the unemployment is the target and you want to loosen the monetary policy. So that way people are more willing to invest, build businesses, hire people on, do that kind of stuff. So it's kind of crazy to say that like we're in a situation where on its face, all three options seem somewhat reasonable. It's just really a measure. It's a measure of what you think is the correct path for the overall economy and what you kind of want to see happen with it, or what you specifically want to try to avoid in the future. Yeah.
Personally, I'd like to see 75 bips cut this year. That'd be great. And to catch everybody off guard, and that causes us to do a serious, rally. That's what I like to see.
Look, my personal bias is right there with you. I think if we had a 75 basis point cut, it would do wonderful things for overall investing, which I've been heavily.
No, I'm not saying 75 with the first cut. I'm saying just more
over the year
cut. Yeah, over the year. Just or catch it by surprise. We're gonna do 50 bips. I mean, maybe we do another cut with 25 bips, and then we'll see how things go. Just that shock, that first initial shock, to be like, yeah, there's a new Fed chair guy here in town, and that's how I'm going to run it.
That would be something, all right. Tell you what, though, I actually have another clip here that raises a good point that I don't think a whole lot of people have been talking about. So let's see what we got going on.
Is gone into your decision to remain on the board? What kind of criteria are you weighing, and how long might you stay? Thank you.
Sure. So, my concern is really about the series of legal attacks on the Fed, which threaten our ability to conduct monetary policy without considering political factors. And I want to note here, this has nothing whatever to do with verbal criticism by elected officials. I've never suggested that such verbal criticism is a problem, and neither has anyone else here. But these legal actions by the administration are unprecedented in our 113-year history, and there are ongoing threats of additional such actions. I worry that these attacks are battering the institution and putting at risk the thing that really matters to the public, which is the ability to conduct monetary policy without taking into consideration political factors. It is so important for our economy, for the people that we serve, that they can depend over time on a central bank that operates that way, free of political influence. It's part of the absolute foundation of this amazing economy that we have. It's just one of the many reasons why the U.S. economy is the envy of the world. That piece of an institutional architecture separates successful countries from unsuccessful countries. It is extremely important, not for the people who work at the Fed at any given time, but for the people that we serve, that the Fed remain able to conduct monetary policy in a way that doesn't get pulled into politics, trying to help or hurt any particular politician or political party. It's critical for the people that we serve. In terms of when I would leave, I will leave when I think it's appropriate to do so. Was that all your questions, or was
Well,
there?
I just have a follow-up, which is, what would you say to the criticism that by remaining on the board, you're actually taking a political act and denying President Trump the majority of the board, which as president he would have if you left?
I don't see that at all. As I mentioned, I'm literally staying because of the actions that have been taken. I had long planned to be retiring, and the things that have happened in the last 3 months have I think left me no choice but to stay until I see them through at least that long. In addition, I don't see how this will interfere. My intention is not to interfere. I was a governor for almost 6 years. And the tradition is at the Fed that governors who understand how difficult the role of chair is, and as a soon-to-be former chair, I do understand how hard it is to get consensus with 19 strong-minded people. You work with the chair. You try to be heard, but also collaborate with the chair and try to support the chair when you can. When you can't, you can't. And I think that's the attitude that people generally take, and that's the attitude that I'll take.
That was, I apologize. I was supposed to cut off the first half, but good synopsis as well. But that's a hell of an answer, in my personal opinion. The question was, by staying on as a governor, are you denying a spot that would be filled by the president? Is that an inherently political action because you are playing blocker for a spot that could be filled for a majority in a voting-based organization?
Of course. That's exactly why he's staying on. That kind of sums it up right there. Come on, it's nothing more in it. He is blocking it. And to sit there and say that the Fed has to be run with no political stigmas or manipulation, well, how long is the Fed has been around since 1910. DC and the politics have always been driving the Fed's decisions ever since then. Come on, man. Come on. Stop. He nailed it on the head. That's exactly why he's staying on. That's exactly it.
Yeah. Like, I know it's a bit of a cynical, cold hard mathematics kind of a take to be like, you staying here is technically -1 for someone else. I get it. It
is, man. We just proved it, man. You haven't done it. It's only happened 2 times. And the last time it was done, it was World War II. Come on, man. He's staying on because of that. It's not because of his name. They already dropped it, man. That was just a smear campaign to make him look bad so he could just be forced upon him, step aside. It was one of those strong arm, basically, I don't know, you want to call it blackmail or whatever you want to call it, but that's how DC runs, man. If they don't like you, they just get dirt on you. They'll create dirt on you, regardless if it's true or not. It doesn't matter. That was a political move. Exactly what it was. I mean, Trump's been very vocal about him stepping aside and step aside. This is basically a way for Powell to kind of stick up the middle finger and be like, well, I'm going to step aside, but I'm not going to give you the majority vote now. It's exactly what it is.
Yeah. Additionally, I know this is like me kind of like going out on a limb here and really stretching and doing the reading between the lines kind of thing. But even the second half of the answer there that he was talking about, he's like, number one, we have to, make sure the politicians aren't trying to stick it to us. Okay. You can interpret that as saying, I'm going to stick it to them instead. And then the second half, he says, yeah. As a former Fed chair, I know it's hard. So when the new Fed chair comes in here, like, y'all have some understanding. And, you got to try to support the Fed chair as much as you can. But if you can't, you can't. So sounds like he's already kind of given himself like the runway to stand up to the Fed chair and just push back from like day one, but still under the guise of like, no, it's a hard job. I get it. But like, I'm doing me. I gotta stick by principles.
I'm just saying, man. I'm just gonna say, if something happens to Jerome Powell, I think it's pretty clear. That's all I'm gonna say. I don't
Boy.
wish harm on anybody, man, but I don't know. You might. It's a DC. I don't know. You might want to put Jerome Powell on suicide watch. That's all I'm gonna say.
Look, I know this is kind of crazy to say, but Jerome Powell is honestly like one of my more favorite people inside of the Beltway, and all the just nonsense that goes on over there. Have we disagreed with him a good amount? Yes. The constant thing that we usually hit him on the head for is either just not giving us the straight enough answers, even though he gives us pretty good straight answers. But the other one is just being late on decisions and just not moving hard enough, fast enough, the way that we think. But at the same time, I think the track record speaks for itself. He has been the Fed chair through a very turbulent period of American history and world history. So got to give kudos to him there. But there were times where he really stuck by his guns, like when the Japan yen carry trade failed and people were calling for an emergency Fed chair meeting and as much as a full point interest rate drop. He just didn't respond, kept on carrying on, and just stayed with the plan. So, like, I wish this man well. I hope he has an excellent retirement. Hang out with the kids. Go do something cool. Get out of DC, for God's sake. That place sucks. Wintertime, too cold. Summertime, too hot. Get out of there. Bad spot. Bad spot.
Go write a book. Go be paid big money to be a public speaker somewhere. Do what all the other guys do.
Yeah. Alrighty. Any final tell you what. We've been rambling. We've been showing the clips, talking about guys changing, coming in and out, possible interest rate cuts, politicization of the Fed and stuff. What does it mean? All right. Baseline is this is actually a bit of a transformational time because of the transition going on. New Fed chair, new leadership, new person getting in there as well. That means a new person with ideas is voting and leading everything. Why do we care about that? Because it can change the direction of the Federal Reserve. As crazy as it to say, that group of 19 people that vote on the interest rate of the United States of America honestly have some of the largest direct impact on the world economy and all the markets that are tied into it. Guess which one's tied into it? Crypto and overall broader scale investments. And it's what really helps determine what is a investor friendly or a scary place for investors to park their money and what we call the risk on versus risk off appetite of investors. So it's the changing of the guard. It's passing the torch. Jerome sticking around kind of hinders that a little bit. Again, it's unprecedented. So we're just going to have to see how it unfolds. But he said he doesn't want to be the shadow Fed chair. He doesn't want to be pulling the strings from behind the curtains. He just wants to stay on, be a voice of reason, try to help transition that stuff. Got it. Okay, cool. We're going to have to see it in action because it's unprecedented and undeniably it is a large social factor. You can't just try to write it off. It's going to be noticeable. I'm just curious to see how they handle it and how Kevin Warsh in particular handles it as the new Fed chair and what he really does with the place. So, we're looking at could be just more of the same.
So when does the Fed meet next? That's the big question everyone we should be looking for. Because I want to hear what the Fed meeting minutes have to come out. That's what I want to hear.
Yeah. By the way, Tracker, you're coming through a little bit scrambled. I don't know if anything changed with the mic.
All right, is that any better?
No.
Okay.
To answer your question, though, the next Fed chair meeting or the next Federal Reserve meeting is going to be June 15th. So pretty much every 45 days. We're April 30th right here. So May, no meeting. Mid-June, next meeting. That's what we're looking at.
Okay, roger that. Am I still coming in pretty bad?
It's not terrible, but it's a little robotic, I will say.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll let you figure that out. Alrighty, tell you what, let's head on. What do you want to cover next? We got
jump into the next thing.
Europe and AI or the crypto market analysis. Actually, let's just talk about markets overall. That's an important one. We're talking about Fed. Let's talk about this. Alrighty, so Bitcoin currently sitting about $76,000. Recently came down over the last 5 days. Had a low about 75,000, and we're moving back up. We did break a little bit under our 20-day moving average, but we were not under there for more than 24 hours. So it's pretty good news for the people that are on the bullish side of things. Again, came back up here, looked at that 80,000 level, but got rejected off of it for a second time before the small retracement there. In the grand scheme of things, is this a large movement? The answer is no. But trying to follow the overall trend of what's going on, kind of how it moves on a day-to-day basis and where it goes, yeah, we have a bit of a retracement after we had what was arguably a pretty decent little run there, going all the way from $65,000 all the way up to $80,000. So 15% out of 65, that's basically a 20% gain on Bitcoin over the course of 30 days, pretty much to the T, because it started on March 29th up here through there. And keep in mind, during this time, we still have had all of Iran stuff going on. So crypto market's looking pretty good. Let's take a look at S&P 500 and how it compares. Would you look at that? That is a new all-time high, 718. I think the new high was just shy of 720, 719. But again, compare this to the crypto chart we just looked at, which is this dip right here. That is all of the Iran stuff going on, followed by the massive recovery. With crypto, we already had our big leg down to the 70K area. And then since then, we've been chopping sideways and starting to move back up a little bit. So overall, Tracker, you actually were the one that had this point earlier. It appears that the crypto markets are pretty sufficiently kind of doing their own thing, independent of the rest of the market right now.
Well, certainly going back for some time. Think about it. So you keep your chart up there, zoom out a little bit more, and let's take a look at what we got going on here. Crypto market peaked on August 24th. Where are you at here on August 24th?
Of last year?
2025, yeah.
Right about there, looking about 645 for the S&P 500.
Okay, so the crypto market topped there. We basically been in a free fall since then. Found a bottom right around, we'll say, February. We found a bottom in February of this year. Okay. Now February is when we found our bottom.
Yep.
That
Right
was
there.
our February 16th. So it was before the rollover in the overall markets. Then we started chopping up to the right, basically, is when it started happening. Now that we started chopping up since that time in February 7th. So before the S&P dropped, we're chopping, kind of going sideways. We already dropped before the market rolled over, and now the market's already rallied past and went to all-time highs. Yet here we are still just chopping sideways, not really getting much of a run in these last, is this a weekly you're on?
This is the weekly, yes.
Gotcha. So we really haven't done a whole lot of movement since that bottom where the overall markets have definitely recovered. So yeah, there's been a decoupling probably going back since August of 2025. It certainly looks like.
Yeah, that sounds about right, honestly. And with overall markets, what we're seeing here is, gosh, back when we were here in February, we were even talking about how, look, market appears to be kind of plateauing, starting to roll over a little bit. And I remember we were talking here early March, saying, okay, we're starting to move out of that range. Oh, we're really moving out. It's all the Iran stuff really dropping it. Okay. Bottom is in. Start getting the talks of the, not even confirmation of the ceasefire talks, but even just the rumors of it. Immediately starts recovering, just like a rubber band coming right back to where it was.
Yeah, I was concerned for the overall markets. We were going to start forming like a head and shoulder pattern, and we were going to retest that high, fail, and then we were going to roll back over again. But we blew right past the all-time high, so that's out the window. So the overall markets look strong. Russell 2000 looks strong. Now Russell 2000 did not hit an all-time high today. It actually hit that a few weeks ago, but still, it's hitting the all-time highs. So. Yeah, I mean, but there's some intraday. I thought there was an intraday candle in here or something that happened where it hit 2,800 one day, but yeah, see there's
2,800 right now, but on
yeah, anyhow, but it's towards its top. It's towards the top. Regardless, market indices are all breaking out, hitting all fresh new time high highs, and yet here we are. Market crypto is just chopping sideways, but we are going. There's lower highs and higher highs, and that's what we're kind of in this lull state. Now the bears think we're going to keep rolling over. Some think we're going to go sideways, to be determined. But it's interesting. So if the markets go down, I don't know. This is a long time for crypto to be decoupled from the overall markets, though.
That's true.
I mean, we're pushing close to a year now. Well, not quite a year. We're probably we still
8
have,
months.
Yeah, we got a good 8 months of decoupling, so that's interesting.
Yeah, it's been one of the big questions over the last couple of years as well, is like, how much is crypto actually correlated to the overall markets? Granted, there was some, I'm talking to like traditional finance is really asking this question, which is like, how much does crypto really move compared to us, or is it kind of its own thing? Obviously, when the ETFs came out, there's a massive boon for it. So it was one of those unique circumstances that they considered where it was actually having independent factors. But after that, especially during the summer of 2024, it largely tracked a lot of the current events that were going on and some of the minor movements of the S&P 500. So seeing that we're actually doing our own thing now, it's an interesting time to be alive. I'll say that much. And yes, the ongoing debate of 4-year cycle versus macroeconomics, it's still out there. But as it stands right now, yes, 4-year cycle gang is still in the lead.
And I'll still go back. We always pound the drum on this one, but the crypto markets are can be easily manipulated because it's such a small market cap. I mean, it doesn't take a lot. I mean, it's smaller than the silver market, the overall crypto market. So it's very simple to manipulate this market to keep it at bay if you want. And a lot of major institutions keep coming in and buying, like we keep beating that drum a lot. So I still think crypto, with holding it back, it's going to need that momentum. It's going to need some type of, I don't know, maybe a Clarity Act to finally get freaking passed so we can start moving up and stop playing around here. Talk about political theater. I mean, that's definitely got political theater written all over it.
Yeah, it does. I mean, overall, looking over at Polymarket, that thing still sitting right around 45%.
Yeah,
Not much movement since we last saw it. The big drop off was
Yeah.
the week before that, going from about 70% down to 50.
Yeah, the Clarity Act has definitely been the thing. It's just stymieing the crypto market. I don't think anything's really going to really move until that sucker gets cleared. I just don't see it happening. We're
That's
just going
true.
to chop. Now, if we are chopping to the upside, good. I have no problem with that. We're chopping. We're moving up. You know, we're being digested and going up. But I think the longer we go sideways, it's better. It's more beneficial for the bulls than it is the bears. That's certainly the case because, I mean, I still think you're running out of sell. I don't know who else is left to sell. I keep saying that over and over again, but I don't know who else is left to sell. I mean, you're going to sell now after we've been beat down this far. I still understand it.
Yeah, over the last 90 days, we've seen ETF outflows. We've seen miners selling off as well. So it really does raise the question, who's left to sell? But by the way, you mentioned the magic word that we've been covering since January, the Clarity Act. One of the other things I wanted to share with the folks here tonight, I found a great article. This is from FEMEX, Crypto Markets Analysis, How Macro Trends Impact Derivatives Volume. Well, they say that there are 3 macro channels that move derivatives. Okay, what do we got? Number 1, interest rates and liquidity. It's almost like we started off the show with that. Number 2, oil and inflation expectations. Almost like we covered that as well. Geopolitical risk and volatile pricing. Almost like we also covered that as well. Okay, sweet. Let's look at the derivatives data. The global crypto derivatives volume fell $4.1 trillion in February 2026, the lowest monthly since October 2023. Bitcoin futures open interest sits at approximately 43.78 billion, down from over 100 billion, by the way. Substantially well below its 2025 peak, which is what I referenced there. The behavioral data confirms the shift. Margin defense mechanisms increased 76%, and the funding rate checks surged 317%. Traders are protecting capital rather than deploying it. The behavioral signature of a market waiting for a catalyst to determine direction. Perpetual futures funding rates have been negative since early 2026, the longest sustained negative streak since November 2022 bear market bottom. As covered in their analysis, this means that the derivatives market is structurally short biased, aka going down. Historically, that level of sustained negative funding has preceded every major Bitcoin relief rally. Interesting. Okay, well, let's see what we got to watch for from 2026 from these guys. Fed meetings. We covered the one today, and the next one's in June. If Kevin Warsh is confirmed and delivers a dovish first meeting, derivatives open interest could expand rapidly as traders position for a rate cut cycle resuming. Here we go. Clarity Act progression. Legislative progress adds a different kind of volume. Regulatory clarity brings institutional derivative participants like pension funds using futures for hedging and ETF issuers managing basis risk. These participants create sustained lower volatility volume rather than speculative spikes that dominate the current tape. And, look at this. We got some other familiar faces. The Iran situation. Every escalation or de-escalation moves oil, which moves inflation expectations, which moves Fed expectations, which moves derivatives positioning. And then, here we go. 2 more that we're well familiar with. The ISM manufacturing PMI. Across above 50 would signal improving economic conditions and historically correlates with expanding derivatives volume as risk appetite returns. And then the last one, this is the one that I personally disagree with. Altcoin ETF approvals. Each new ETF creates derivatives demand. The futures launched in February for Solana and XRP ETF applications are in advanced stages. Every approved ETF generates corresponding futures and options volume on both CME and crypto native exchanges. The reason I disagree with this one is that we already saw the Ethereum ETF get launched. We also saw a Solana and XRP ETF get launched. Since those launches, they did not have a significant change in the price at all or really affect the markets that much. It was just one more data point to consider. But by and large, the Bitcoin ETFs are the ones that absolutely dwarf those in comparison, just on volume, price, and just overall liquidity. So that's the only one I'll disagree with. But honestly, look, we're not crazy people. We're not the only ones saying it. Fed meeting, clarity, world stability, and PMI. Oh, love it when you're right, huh?
Everybody wants price to go up. That's what we want, except for the bears, but we don't care about the bears.
That's true. That's true.
There's always a time. There's always a time to get bearish. And I'm sorry, you don't get bearish after you've had these monster drops like this. You just don't. Now, as we go up, now let's just say a hypothetical, we start going up. Yeah, let's say we get closer to Bitcoin gets over to 100,000, 110. Hey, you should be getting more bearish as that price starts going up. I mean, that's common. But unfortunately, people's human nature kicks in and you do the opposite typically. You start FOMOing in more, thinking, oh, this is time to load in, when reality is the opposite, the contrarian view.
That's true.
I don't know. We'll see. I'll be curious to know what expectations we could get here. I mean, I'd love to see some price action. I mean, even if we grind up, if we can just grind up, just keep grinding up, and maybe it's more sustainable instead of having these parabolic moves. Because typically when you get these parabolic moves, that's when you have the blow off tops. Now, we didn't really get a true blow off top in Ethereum, in my opinion. I mean, I get it. We had a big blow off top, double, triple, actually quad drop. We had a quad.
The quad top.
And August 14th, you had August 24th, you had September 12th, you had October 6th. It's like, yeah, that says manipulation like crazy right there. It just kept hitting that top and it just kept getting dumped. Then we went back. So I guess what I'm rambling on about here is I would like to see a more sustained rally. So kind of a next leg up, maybe. I don't know. I'm just looking at Ethereum's price right now. I would love to see a kind of a pump up, hit maybe 2,800, something like that. Maybe pull back and consolidate. Right. There's a great point of control between the prices of tools. For argument's sake, I'll say 2,400 and 2,800. There's a really good pocket there. If you want a little tighter range, you got about a 2,700 to, we'll say 2,450. It's a nice pocket. If we could go, hit the top of that area, kind of bounce around, consolidate, that would be a good point of control, and consolidate and then next leg up. Something like that would be more sustainable. That's what I want to see. I don't want to see these parabolic moves, because if you have these slow melt ups, that's where you start getting people freaking out on the side. People are expecting dumps, and that's when you get more sustained rally that can really start to take off. But that's what I want to see. I don't want to see any quick, fast moves. I'm okay. if it wants to grind.
Grinding towards the upside.
But now the problem that I'm seeing now is, so since we hit April 14th, the Ethereum to Bitcoin ratio has not been looking good. I mean, it's been going pretty much down, and we've kind of fallen out of this nice uptrend. We've kind of fallen down, and we're back towards, I can say the lows, but we're kind of in the middle of the pack here on the ETH to Bitcoin ratio. So that's something to always keep an eye on. So Bitcoin's definitely gathering some steam, which I know you have an article about Bitcoin on the 4-year cycle, right?
I do. I think I might actually save this one, but I had it ready to go because you mentioned the possibility that we're not going to see the old parabolic blow off tops, and now we're going to start see more less parabolic and flow driven stuff. So this is a fantastic article, by the way, that breaks down the Bitcoin 4-year cycle difference. So I'm going to be posting that in our private chat and going over it with those excellent folks. But I did have this one that I wanted to share with you to close out the stream here tonight. Stable coins overtake Bitcoin in Latin America crypto purchases. Okay. A report shows shifting user behaviors as dollar-linked stablecoins gain traction for everyday financial use across Latin America's inflation-hit economies. Digital asset adoption is evolving, with more users now converting funds into stablecoin than into Bitcoin, a shift that reflects growing pressure from the local economic conditions. According to the report, 40% of purchases in 2025 were US dollar-linked stablecoins such as USDT or USDC, while Bitcoin only accounted for 18%. That's more than double. The report marks the first time stablecoin purchases have surpassed Bitcoin in the region. The findings are based on data from nearly 10 million retail users across the exchange platform. The trend reflects a broader move towards what Latin American crypto exchange describes as digital dollarization. In countries facing persistent inflation, currency depreciation, and limited access to traditional banking, stablecoins offer a relatively accessible way to store value and transact in US dollar equivalents. Well, I know we were saying that the stablecoin bills in the U.S. were going to be great for the United States, but apparently the adoption of stablecoins is even better for, South America. This is kind of wild.
No, actually, it's been I've watched this a lot actually, and it's been very fascinating because inflation's so high. And I'm really looking at Argentina as the one out there. Now, Venezuela's got extremely high inflation as well, but Argentina's been notoriously high, and I was reading articles a few years ago on just how they would get paid, they would go and convert it into crypto the day they get their check, because literally their money was losing every time they held that money in their hands. So their currency was just garbage. And interesting enough, they just worked out a tariff agreement with the United States. I know there was something that went down with that issue, but yeah, the inflation is nowhere. Interesting enough, you know who has the lowest inflation out of all of these countries, at least for 2025? I want to see, hang on, include 2024 and 2025. I wanted to see that list because it's really interesting when you break it down this way, because I saw something I thought was very interesting. Because inflation is so high, this has become norm. So crypto is highly used. It's, as far as the concentration around the world, I looked at a map like 2 years ago, and the amount of activity in South America and in parts in Central America were really hotbeds. And that was what was interesting. Okay, so check this out. This was inflation going back for 2024 in Venezuela. For example, extremely high in South America. Venezuela was very, very high. Their inflation was high because there's a lot of stuff. I don't want to get into all this stuff, but there's a lot of stuff there. It was mainly around the oil and how it was more of they turned it into more of a socialist company because everything was tied to the oil, but I don't want to get into that. But bottom line is their inflation was extremely high, 200 to 600% in 2024. This is why you had all those videos, people going there, like you heard all these horror stories, people eating the animals in the zoos. I mean, it was pretty horrific. I don't live there. I can't speak on any of it, and I'm not going to make any judgment on that because I can't speak on it. In 2025, their inflation was 270 to 387%. I mean, that's hyperinflation. So their inflation is still out of control. Of course, these deals with Venezuela and the oil refining, I'm sure this is going to come home to roost where something's going to come out of that deal. I have a feeling, but there's going to be a new person obviously in charge of Venezuela. That's going to be all put in place. So that's going to happen. Argentina is still very high, 220% in 2024 and 47% in 2025 still. That's why it's happening. So I'm not going on the whole list of every country in Central America and South America. Those are the really high ones, still very high numbers. You know who's the lowest out of all Central America and South America?
I'm going to guess El Salvador.
Yes, they're number one. They have the lowest inflation. Lowest inflation. It's like 0.5%, 1%. It was like 1% in 2024, and we're not even at a full. We'll say 1% in 2025. Now, what is so interesting about El Salvador?
It's Bitcoin land.
Yes, it is Bitcoin land. Their president made it the first. Bitcoin was the first time they made it legal tender was Bitcoin. And that's probably why they are dealing with this inflation. Now, if you don't understand the story of that, basically the president came in, he said, this is how it's going to go down. We're going to make it legal tender. People were freaking out about it, but it's been chosen to actually has stymied them from a massive inflation. But I keep this in mind, he was getting a little too aggressive. That's when the IMF had to step in and tell him, hey, man, listen, you're going to do some things here. You're going to cool off a little bit here with the crypto and all everything else, or we're going to cut your rating is basically what they told El Salvador, their thing. So they strong armed them, but they're still looking really good. They're still in really good chain. So yeah, their choices of moving into it. And of course, he also promoted their alternative energies they have there for Bitcoin mining and all that, because they have thermal power from the volcanoes and stuff like that. So it's really interesting, very fascinating way of talk about, I hate to use the word, but thinking outside the box. I mean, literally, they were really thinking outside the entire financial box when it came to that and how to get his country under control. So kudos to him. I thought that was fascinating. El Salvador's president also was the one who was bringing a lot. So while people were meeting in Davos, he brought a lot of major players from around the world to meet in El Salvador because they were pushing to try to go more crypto. So they were trying to get more countries from South America, Africa, South America, Central America to get on board with stymieing this inflation problem. So they had a huge convention there in El Salvador between a lot of leaders, and it was basically like, okay, we're not included in the Davos or the G8 summits and stuff. That's fine. We'll do our own thing. So it was interesting. So that's El Salvador. Just thought it was interesting to see that.
Look, do we live in Latin America? The answer is no. I will dox us that much, or South America for that degree. So realistically, look, it sucks to be those guys. Like, my heart goes out to you. I'm sorry you have to deal with all that crap. But at the same time, look, DeFi and crypto is actually offering you a bit of a solution. Granted, you are still linked to the US dollar, so you're in the same boat as we are with that one. But at the same time, look, it's not the world's largest market. Probably doesn't even crack the top 10. But overall, we're seeing crypto adoption, especially stablecoins, because I think the stablecoin narrative has been largely pushed in the United States after the Genius Act was passed last summer. I haven't seen a ton of stuff come out for it, but the market's growing inside of the United States and the market's growing outside of the United States, meaning that it's no longer just contained to one specific area. So this whole thing is starting to evolve and gain more legitimacy worldwide. That's only a good thing, because legitimacy for crypto is really what we're looking for at this stage in the game. The more people you can get to adopt it, the more people are going to accept it, and the more it's just, less stigmatized. Because we gotta, like you opened up with the Twitter, was it hushing, snoozing, silencing? Yeah, crypto's, what was it, number one?
What was this again? I'm sorry.
The X snoozing report.
Yeah. I thought that was funny. Shout out to Sami on that one. Yeah, I thought that was a really funny find out. We are more hated than politics. That says a lot.
Yeah, look, we're trying to get crypto legislation passed for market structure. We have stablecoins passed, and we're trying to see the U.S. become the crypto capital of the world. There is a heavy stigma that goes on with crypto based on everything that's gone on. I am specifically going to point the finger a little bit at the NFT guys, because I think they went a little too crazy at the end of the 2021 cycle. But there's no doubt that there's a bit of a gap to cross there. Stuff like this, I think, helps us cross that gap and helps get more people into the fold to understand what's going on, and really kind of, I'm not trying to tell you, everyone, you have to take the red pill and learn how the Federal Reserve was created by JP Morgan in his last dying breaths and how they screwed you out of all, look, that stuff is true, but that's not the point. The point is money can be better. Crypto is the future. We're still early. We're not as early as we were back in 2022 before the ETFs, but arguably we're still early.
I'll say it this: you weren't if you weren't here when the run up was happening on the third cycle, going into altcoin season. That was the blow off top for, like, considered to the .com bubble generation. Then we're coming out of the aftermath of the fallout of during, if you equate this to .com. But when that came out, big movements came out of the .com generation, and you had huge conglomerate companies getting built. Massive amount of money started flowing into it, and that's kind of what I think that's the best parallel you can make that most people could understand, at least. And internet evolved dramatically. That's where we migrated to. That's why you're going to see crypto go in that direction. Interesting enough, Venezuela and Argentina are the two countries of all the ones we listed that had the highest inflation. They're also the two countries with the most crypto adoption, very high levels. Put in perspective, 30% of the population heavily use stable coins. UST, don't get me started on USDT, but 90% to peer-to-peer as savings hedge against, it's all about hedging against inflation. And in Argentina, you have 11 to 12 million users. Strong inflation hedge is what people are using for. Brazil, 18.5 million users. That's 8.6% of the people there are using crypto. So yeah, and DeFi payments, stablecoin dominant. Of course, we already know about El Salvador. So yeah, I mean, Colombia's got 10% of its people there, 5 million users mixed and using it on e-commerce and all types of stuff. So, yeah, so those countries are further ahead because they've already seen the hyperinflation. The United States is just starting to really get it. I hate to say we're just getting a taste of it, but it's been a slow bleed. We've been death by 1,000 cuts because it's the inflation has been kind of hidden on the U.S. folks because it's only been going up 7 to 9, 10% ish, give or take. It's been kind of grinding up that way, and all of a sudden now it's just really taken off in the last 2 years aggressively. Obviously, tariffs, things like this come into play, but these countries have already seen this bloodbath coming a long time ago. They've got on this because they saw it being. It's interesting. They're so much further ahead than the U.S. consumers. That's what I'll say.
True. Very true. Tell you what, though, if folks do want to learn a little bit more about all the inflation stuff and how to manage it, well, that is something we do talk about inside of the private Telegram community, which, by the way, if you want to join so you can get the latest and greatest what's going on in the crypto world, including all of our research and all the stuff that we try to share with you good folks, including cool live streams where we cover fun projects. We just did the Pulse Chain deep dive, talked about the overall ecosystem, some cool projects. Those are in the archives over there, so you can find them there. But yes, you can find all that stuff by joining the private Telegram. If you want to do that, head on over to walktheblockndf.com, find the membership tab, and down below you can find the link to sign up for that. So around these parts, we'd like to say that come join us as we navigate digital finance together. Private mentorship, exclusive live streams, Q&A, go from beginner to intermediate to expert with us. We all work together. We can all win together. Excellent. Well, sir, that is about all we got.
I did want to say something there. So I know me and Dace, we're going to be in the members chat tomorrow going over some of the new stuff that's coming out with the new ZK rollups that are going to be tied to some of these new wallets that are happening in those Pulse Chain communities that are coming out. Technology is really fascinating. And then we're going to do a little bit of that on the onboarding of that's been set up by shout out to Liberty Swap and them. I think some of the technology coming out on their side has been very fascinating. So we definitely want to do kind of a dive into that area. We're going to start diving into the memberships, and then we're going to start getting into mixers and some other things. Now that they are considered legal in the United States, we'll be diving into those aspects and other things too in the membership. So like I said, in DeFi world, it's much more interesting. But yeah, ZK wallets are fascinating because the way they're built. I'm not going to be talking about it here online. They're just fascinating in the DeFi land. Really interesting technology. We're going to get in there. We're going to talk about actually understanding it, but not just understanding, but then how to use it, which more people care about users. And then also breaking it apart and looking at this, how safe it is. Because right now, the one big thing we're talking about, I know you didn't touch on the topic in today's show. I know you had it, but I know there was a topic on that was on security. One thing that's been happening around the world is attacks, certainly in European markets, specifically in France, I think was the number one that we found around.
Yep.
So you're on crypto attacks. AI is now starting to pick it up because it's another tool here. And tools are great. It's like real simple. Guns are great tools to use, but if used incorrectly, yeah, you can wreak havoc on things, just like any tool. But here's AI now. So that's the threat here on that problem, and there's threats on DeFi certainly. So that's what we're going to be focusing with our memberships. If you focus more around security and things of that nature, because that's one area that people are just they just lack, and I don't think they quite understand. So interesting times we'll be diving into. Some fascinating stuff, some pretty cool things we're going to be getting into.
Look, I'm a nerd, so I like the ZK stuff, which, by the way, stands for Zero Knowledge Cryptography Proofs. They are very fascinating, very cool mathematical tools, but you don't need to know the math. You just need to know how to use them properly. But yes, that is what we got there. I will be posting all the articles that I did not get to into the Telegram, along with the cool one talking about the 4-year cycle, which we will be covering in the near future in there. But yeah, outside of that, good sir, do you have any final words for our friend Jerome Powell as he departs the chair and goes to second chair?
Just let it go, man. Let it go. It's okay, man. Go out there. You've done your service to whoever you needed to do the services to. You're done. You just need to kind of go off into the sunset, enjoy retirement, be a public speaker, write a novel, do whatever you want. Create a sitcom. Hell, create a sitcom about being on the Fed board. I'm sure it'd be hilarious to see some of the stuff on there. An office version of the Fed. That'd be hilarious. So I don't know. Just thinking, hey, step aside. That's the best way I can put it. Come on.
Yeah, that's fair. Honestly, I'm kind of right there with you because it's like I know you want to try to do good, but at the same time, for the next guy that comes into a leadership position, if the old boss is sticking around, guess who's still the boss? The old boss. You're just an assistant effectively. So, granted, it is a little bit different because it does come with legitimate power making, decision making powers and stuff like that. But at the same time, like I think Jerome's done fine work. He should be very proud of himself for weathering the storm because he had a hell of a storm to weather. And you know what? The ship is okay at the end of the day, and the crew's going to be all right. So, good work, sir. Thank you for your service. Please enjoy retirement. I hope you do. But yeah, that is pretty much all we got for tonight. We're going to be keeping an eye on everything going on and the latest and greatest with crypto. So we'll see you guys next Thursday, same time as always, 9 p.m. Eastern time. And outside of that, we'll catch you inside of the Telegram for all of our fantastic members. And before we get out of here, I do want to say Centurion54X, he was saying hola amigos. He also got that in before we covered the South America story. So it's funny how that lined up. And then Moonpill Irrational Optics, last take on Jerome Powell saying he was too legit to quit. Cutting rates, in fact. I see you out there. Alrighty, that is what we got. We'll catch you guys next week. We'll catch all you cool cats in the Telegram. Until then, I hope you guys have a fantastic evening. Go cheer on the Sabres. Buffalo might get a championship. They've needed one for a while now, but we'll catch you guys later. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll catch you guys next time. Good night.